Welcome one and all to Last Stop Penn Station podcast featuring Cary Sullivan and Ian Riccaboni. They dive deep into Cary's wealth of stories, and no subject is off limits. From the world of wrestling to his ticket agency, growing up in New Jersey, drug-fueled underground days, hustling in the French Quarter of New Orleans, and endless days and nights in New York City, every story is worth telling.
Welcome, everyone, to another exciting edition of Last Stop Penn Station. I'm Ian Riccaboni with the guest of honor, Cary Sullivan. Cary, I'm out of the bubble.
You're out of the bubble. He's got a bubbly face and a bubbly nose. Mr. Bubble. Well, first of all, how was the bubble and how was the ROH weekend?
It was great. Again, Caprice and I, we were really kind of gelling as a team. The camaraderie's there, and we're just having fun now with Quinn, and we're doing funny pictures and videos and all that. So we're having a good time, but we have the privilege of seeing everybody in the bubble. And that's not something all the wrestlers get. And when you talk about camaraderie, there's something special about seeing your friends every 2 weeks.
I know. It breaks my heart not being able to be there. I guess technically, if I wanted to go through the protocol and just hang around, I could probably do that, but it's not appealing to me.
I'm going to make a personal plea. There's been a rumor that there might be a very big event in December. So for your consideration, you might want to think about it. You might get to see a lot of your friends there. We might want to have you ringside for that. Oh,
that would be fantastic. And hopefully the protocols of the Maryland State Athletic Commission will be a little more relaxed. Yeah,
they were, they're good people. They're trying to do the right thing. And it felt a little more relaxed, nothing to the point of, people sneaking out or bringing people in. But, we were having a little bit of fun this time. We were poking out our heads out of our rooms or going in the hallways to say hi to each other. And it was a little bit lighter this time, but, we're trying to keep, the virus is serious. We still don't know everything about it yet. So.
Well, the Maryland State Athletic Commission, by the way, has is notorious. I'm not criticizing what they're doing with this COVID protocol. Maybe they're on the top of the protective curve. I guess it's much better than being on the bottom of it.
Right.
But what I was going to say about them was you could speak to Gary Juster, and as well as myself, and their protocols going back, I'll just talk from what Gary told me, in the 80s. Mm-hmm. And don't forget, Baltimore was his main city.
Right. He was the promoter of record there.
Right. The great Chester O'Sullivan was the athletic commissioner, and who Ring of Honor ran one show in Maryland in about 2000 and late 2003.
Okay.
Very early 2004. Mm-hmm. And these guys had their hands out.
Yeah.
I'm not saying the current athletic commission are fine people. But besides and they had medical protocols back even in my show, but they charged for everything.
Ah, gotcha.
And similar to New York.
Yeah.
They charge for everything. But Gary will tell you some classic stories. Probably the best one. We need to have him as a guest one day, but I'll try to tell the story quickly through what he told me. There was an NWA show probably towards the later 80s. Mm-hmm. And there was a matinee and an evening in Baltimore.
Oh.
So it was a split crew. But the main event guys, like the Road Warriors, like Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson, and our good friend Ric Flair, they were flying. There was like 6 or 7 main eventers, or 8 probably, right? Even number, were flying from the North Carolina show for the main events in Baltimore. Now, this is pre-cell phones, and so there was no communication. So Kevin Sullivan was at the Baltimore show, and they get through these matches, and they go to intermission. Well, the intermission technically should have been, they shouldn't have gone through all the matches.
Oh,
but they were waiting for these main event guys to get there. And all that, like, Gary's panicking, and he's calling North Carolina to the building, and they left, they're on their way. Anyway, the commissioner, Chester O'Sullivan, a few versions of this story. Kevin Sullivan says, I went up to him and I said, Chester, the biggest regret in my life, I was an O'Sullivan. But the way things were back in old Ireland, the family, they disgraced us by removing the O. And the one thing, the biggest regret of my life is not legally changing my name to O. Sullivan. and that's Kevin's version. And Chester was like, because he was like, when's this going to go on? And there was also a thing about blood. They didn't like any blood.
Well, there's some interest. I thought you were going with the blood story, but yeah.
So that was Gary's version. There's always three sides to this. They're getting to Gary's version was they go through these matches, and he's like, well, we'll go to the intermission. So somehow, as if it was like by magic, someone had in the dressing room like a trophy from bowling or something. So they were panic stricken on what to do. So Gary think, I know, to delay everything, we could give an award to Chester O'Sullivan in the ring. And they got in the ring. I'm thinking we told this story already, but maybe not. So now the fans have been waiting now. Like, usually a wrestling intermission was, 15, 20 minutes, get your popcorn, go take a leak, and we're going to get to the big matches. So Gary's got to get in the ring. Now, Chester, when I met him, he was probably in his 80s. So he was, in his 60s, but he was an elderly gentleman in his 60s, probably a little bit like me. And he had trouble I have trouble getting in and out of the ring. He had a lot of trouble. So by the time he got in the ring, and now Gary's got to make this presentation, and the fans start booing. And Gary's like, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of NWA World Championship Wrestling, boo, boo, boo. And so what Chester, without Gary Jester getting the introduction to Chester O'Sullivan goes, give me the goddamn mic. Shut up, all of you. Shut up. I'll close this down. Let the man speak. I deserve, sound like Pig-Face Standover. I deserve this reward. So Gary then did his presentation despite the constant booing. And it was one tactic they used to delay the show, which also reminds me, and I know I told you this story. Do we talk on air?
No, Willy Gilsenberh, right?
Right. Yeah. I went to a show. It might have been with Uncle Gunny. But it was in Elizabeth. And, Willy Gilsenberh was he was the Jack Tunney figure, going back to the early 50s and 60s and 70s. And he was an old Newark guy, like my parents. Somehow my parents and Uncle Henry knew him. Like, oh, you mean Gilly? Because he promoted boxing and wrestling in Newark. He was a Newark Jewish guy, close-knit community. Mm-hmm. And at one time, check this out, like when I was like 11 years old, 12 years old, going to my father's sister's house, which was on the hillside Newark border. So they had an Essex County phone book. In the white pages, under the W's was WWWF. Wow. And there's the Prudential building in Newark. Yeah. Not the Prudential Center.
Sure, but the insurance building. Yeah.
The office building. So, yeah, they had their office. And so, anyway, at this show in Elizabeth, we go to the show. It might have been at the old Rich Theater. and there's a sign on the box office window. Now, AJ, our producer from Basan Creative, who helps us so much, and he's not the biggest wrestling fan. AJ, take a look over at that yellow poster, the heavy-set man at the bottom.
Oh, my goodness.
Right, the great Haystacks Calhoun.
Yeah.
Now, although he doesn't, I always, no matter when it was, whether it was when I was a little kid in the late 60s or going in Elizabeth in the 70s, he always weighed 601 pounds.
Consistent.
Not 595, not 602. From Morgan's Corner, Arkansas, 601 pound. He probably weighed 4 something. Anyway, there's a sign on the box office window that says Haystacks Calhoun. It was like a kid took a magic marker and wrote, "Hey, Calhoun not here, leg infection, no refunds." So you were duly noted and you were warned ahead of time. This guy's not going to be there. Well, why Willy Gilsenberh would then proceed to do what I'm going to tell you is beyond. He just wanted to because he was going to make sure every dime came out of that place. Now, they might not have. Oh, they must have sold beer, but for some reason, one of the staple beverages for the non-alcohol drinkers was the classic school-style orange juice.
In a little box?
Yes. Yeah. So we're waiting there, and the lights go out. The opening bout's going to be Johnny Roz against Arl Skolin or something. Right. But before that happens, the lights go out. And here comes Willy Gilsenberh schlepping up the stairs. They fortunately had steps. He couldn't have made it. Well, the people start booing, and he trips on the bottom rope. Poor guy. Now, if that wasn't bad enough, the fans start pelting him with the crushed up beer cups and the orange juice container. And he grabs the mic. It was one of those mics that came from Philly.
Like the old Madison Square Garden.
God damn it. I'll shut this fucking thing down. Stop it. They just they're throwing the cartons at him. And all he wanted to do was say, and he was so disheveled and disgusted at this point. He's like, "Calhoun's not here, and you're not getting your fucking money back." And which caused more beer cans.
My God.
More beer cups and orange juice cartons. But the great Willy Gilsenberh. I have a little poster, which we can't see, and I'm upset that it's higher. It's too high, but it's the only wrestling poster. The promoters' names are listed on many of them, but this one has a photo of Willy Gilsenberh.
No way.
And his partner was Babe Cullen, and it says something like, "These promoters bring you only the finest." So. Anyway, we got off track but how was Baltimore?
Well, Gary Jester didn't enter the ring, thankfully. There was no fans, but intentionally, and it was great. We did 8 more episodes of television. So the pure tournament, as this airs, the semifinals are going to be this weekend, and then the finals next weekend. So we're down to the final four. Lethal, Tracy Williams, Jonathan Gresham, Josh Woods. And it was great, calling their matches, and then into the bubble, getting to call matches with them, getting to call matches with some, here's a teaser, some names that you've known that may or may not have been in Ring of Honor before. So we're getting
very cool.
Yeah, getting some variety into the mix with Ring of Honor. And it really was a showcase for a lot of the newer, younger talent. And that was something that I was excited to see too, because we got to see some names that have been in Ring of Honor for a year or two that really got an opportunity to step up and to prove themselves. So it was really great. Again, Caprice, myself, and Quinn, we're fortunate we get to see everybody. We get to say hello to everybody, and it's nice. But the bubble's not too bad. The bubble, you bring your PlayStation, you bring your, you get your TV, your internet, you're fine. Well,
Brian Malone has called me on his way home.
Okay.
A rarity.
Yeah.
Once in a blue moon, we'll talk on the phone. He's a big football fan. He knows I like to maybe make a small wager on the games. So, but he had a long ride, so he was bored. So he called me up, and I was asking him, how was the bubble? And he's like, it was all right. But for him, and he was not going to be bad. He said after, he goes, I was starting to go crazy.
Yeah.
I was starting to go crazy. He goes, at one point I had to, call the front desk to just go to the front desk.
Yeah.
So, but Ring of Honor did it safe. Mm-hmm. And that's the main thing. And there's going to be more good content. If you haven't been joining us, I'm not talking about Last Stop Penn Station here. Hopefully you're joining us for all of our episodes. But if there's every Monday night, at 7 p.m. Eastern time, there's a watch party showcasing the past weekend's TV product, which is the pure title, which Ian just mentioned, the upcoming matches. Mm-hmm. That's fun. The ROH week to week with Quinn has been great.
She's great. She's wonderful.
And the other content that's come out, whether it's the beers, the happy hour with the bouncers.
Yeah.
Or, Dalton Castle has his.
And the new spooky stories. I saw Kellyanne got involved with Sledge. And there's rumor Jay Lethal's going to talk about the haunted hotel that Jay Lethal, myself, and the Young Bucks were in Liverpool.
Maybe we could talk about that.
Yeah.
We could talk about that in a little while.
Sure. We can share that for the Halloween edition. We can.
And another thing with Ring of Honor is, and this is, I got to call somebody in the office because I believe this is a little under promoted. The release of the 50 matches.
Oh, it's incredible.
Now, am I safe to say those are basically from my era of ownership?
This is the Cary era of Ring of Honor. And if you like who you see on SmackDown or Raw, you're going to be able to see them when they're 24, 25 years old, just doing things you've never seen them do before and have these incredible matches on Honor Club. It's 50 matches a week. It's Bryan Danielson. It is Claudio. It is Chris Hero. It is Motor City Machine Guns. Nigel. Samoa Joe. Paul London. Spanky. There's too many to name. Literally, Delirious. Roderick Strong.
Homicide.
Yeah, you could literally list 100 people. But the Ring of Honor catalog is digitized, and this is our way of being able to release it in a way that's cataloged and labeled so that Honor Club is better for everybody so that you can go in and use the search function and find these matches. But to your point, Cary, we put it out there, but I don't think people realize that Honor Club has almost the entire Ring of Honor catalog now.
Yeah. Do I want to say it rivals WWE 24/7 or whatever it's called? They have more content and but if you're an ROH fan or if you're just a wrestling fan, there is a wealth of stuff. And the best thing, or certainly interesting, is that with these 50 matches, these have been like hidden jewels. Mm-hmm. Unless you have the DVDs, or some of them snuck onto YouTube here and there, but I believe they've been washed.
Right.
These matches have been unseen for a long time. So that's a really cool thing. Another cool thing is, and I'm very disappointed tonight, I thought you might wear your white rimmed glasses.
Those are a hit.
They're a hit.
And take it back to Kevin Sullivan. Do you know who told me to start wearing fun, different colored glasses and match them with my ties?
Kevin O'Sullivan?
Kevin O'Sullivan. We were in a car. It was myself, Steve Crino, Colt Cabana, and I had been the interviewer, kind of what Quinn's doing now. And he said, hey, kid, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to eventually do the play-by-play. You know, if Kevin moves on or does something different. He goes, find something that stands out. He goes, you should really match. You have nice ties. You dress really nice. Match your glasses to your ties.
There you go.
And so, yeah, the white was a little extreme, though.
It was a little extreme, but you look good. You carry it well.
Thank you.
And we have a very good-looking crew with you and the stately Caprice.
Yeah.
And the very pretty Quinn.
Yeah, we have a great team, and we're starting to kind of gel and have fun, and it's pretty cool. Especially Caprice. I wouldn't be able to get through this peer tournament without Caprice. He knows Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu inside and out. He knows Muay Thai inside and out. He knows you name the martial art. He can describe what's happening and help the viewers understand.
And in Monday's watch party, I'm going to forget now, but I tweeted it. What did you call that? It was something like it wasn't a Manchurian, but some kind of...
Oh, the Greco-Roman knuckle lock.
Yeah, the guy, the commonly known Greco-Roman knuckle lock. Was that Caprice's suggestion? Or
no, that is... I stole that from Gorilla Monsoon. Gorilla would always be sure to call the Greco-Roman knuckle lock.
Well, he was an amateur wrestler.
Yeah, so when that's, you'd see it with Hulk and the Warrior. That's the big one that I can remember, is when they lock hands, chest to chest, they jockey for position.
Well, you're doing a good job, and so is Ring of Honor. And I'm happy that here we are in 2020 in this rough year, but we're moving along.
Yeah.
And did you vote?
I sure did. Yeah, I'll tell you what. Before I tell you who I voted for and why, because I can't contain it. I think people should know and be informed.
I will disclose mine also.
Yeah. This is our son's 5th election, and he's only 3 years old.
Yeah, I was wondering about that.
Yeah, so it's kind of a riddle. My wife went into labor while she was voting in 2016, and I was on the ground in an airplane in Pittsburgh because he was about 2.5 weeks early. It was my last scheduled trip, and so I got to rent a car and rushed home. And but yeah, he was coming out while she was voting. and then went with her to the general election in 2017, 18. He's been a couple primaries too. 2019 he was with us, and then this year they dropped off their ballot down at the county center down in downtown Allentown and made sure it was counted. And they got neat little I voted early stickers. And
how did you vote?
So not many people know this. I'm actually an elected person in Lehigh County and Salisbury Township. And it was by accident. I was goofing around and I wrote myself in for a chairperson. It's essentially the county, the district lead for your party. I'm a registered Democrat, and I didn't realize that no one was running or no one had petitioned. So I just wrote myself in. And I won the election with 1 vote. And there's 2 people.
What are your duties?
So my duties are email lists, get out the vote type efforts, making sure I'm on mailing lists. I try to communicate with some of our state, local, and federal representatives, Susan Wild, Josh Shapiro, the Attorney General, things like that.
That's very good, because if Freddie the Weeper would have done that, and he have said, "Oh, why did I get involved?" So, because you're taking on a lot of stuff.
It's not too bad. They kind of spoon feed you, and it's good stuff. It's there's a lot of ways to be involved that I don't think people consider, like text banks, phone banks. Very easy to do. They give you an app now. You can sign into a website. It gives you people to text or people to call, and it's super easy. And so I did a text bank on Sunday. My preferred candidate is Joe Biden in this election, And I've always liked Joe. In the 2008 election, I actually really liked Joe Biden at the time, and he dropped out pretty early. I think he dropped out before Super Tuesday, but ended up becoming the vice president. He's got a lot of heart. He's an honest man, and that's good enough for me in this election. But he's got some good ideas on how to improve the Affordable Care Act instead of trying to sue with the Department of Justice to tear it down. And those are big issues for me because my parents now are 65 years old and getting to that age where Medicare, Medicaid, all that fun stuff becomes important. So,
well, at the risk of shaming myself, I voted this year. I had to do a change of address.
Oh, okay.
Because I hadn't voted since 2000.
Wow.
That's the shame part.
Okay.
So I cannot complain. I don't have the right to complain about Donald Trump, even though I do. But I made sure this year, would my one vote have mattered in last year's Pennsylvania? Well, if enough people are like me, it does matter.
Right.
And thanks to AJ's lovely wife, she directed me to the website to register. I did so with the change of address, and I checked off that I would like to vote by mail, which Mr. Trump doesn't seem as very fair.
Right.
But
even though he himself participated that way.
And it was really cool because I registered, and it took maybe a few days, and I got the confirmation. Mm-hmm. But then I didn't get the ballot. Maybe this was in the summertime. It was in August.
Yeah.
And the ballot came 3 weeks ago. I filled it out, and I took it to the post office.
Okay.
And I got the receipt via email. So my vote is in.
Yeah.
So now, and yes, it is for Joe Biden also. And this podcast will be out after, I don't know if they're going to really have this debate.
Right. As we're recording, there's posturing indicating that one of the participants does not like the mute function that's been proposed and may try to pull out. Yeah.
So everyone listening, this will be out this Friday. Definitely vote. Vote for whoever you want.
Yeah.
But at least vote so you don't have to be a knucklehead like me who hasn't voted for almost 20 years. And it's important, or else I don't have the right to complain at least. So now we could talk about doing cocaine with Tony Atlas.
Wait a minute. Well, we did all the important stuff, and now we're...
Or maybe we could talk about...
Oh, wow. That was a sledgehammer.
I figured we just lighten things up.
Lighten the mood a little bit, back up.
Or we could talk about whatever. But
I saw that great picture of Bobby Heenan you posted, and we could talk about that. Well, let's do Bobby and Tony today. What do you think?
Okay. It's not boring. We'll do Tony first.
Okay.
And I'm very good friends with Luke Williams. Mm-hmm. I'm the great Kevin O'Sullivan. I met him originally when ROH was doing WrestleMania in Dallas. Yes.
Okay.
You were there.
I wasn't brought to that one, but I was with the company, but I wasn't brought to that one. Yep. Yeah,
that was a good one.
That was Kyle versus Adam.
And Kyle and I went to Dealey Plaza.
Oh, okay.
And one day, AJ will really roll his eyes when he hears this. One day, I'd love to do, if you're interested, something about the Kennedy murder. Well, I don't call it conspiracy. Yeah. It was the Kennedy murder. Mm-hmm. But I'd love to get into the details of why I feel that way. But Kyle's interest, it was Kyle O'Reilly, I was close with him. He and I and Adam Cole, I took him to Yankee Stadium. Mm-hmm. Kyle and I went and saw the Book of Mormon.
Yeah.
He's a good guy, and I'm really happy for his success. But we went to Dealey Plaza.
Wow.
Which was really interesting. And no matter what, did you ever go?
I went with Matt Taven. Yeah, he's a guy. If we do that episode, we got to have Matt on because he's got some thoughts too.
So yeah, no matter what day you go to Dealey Plaza, maybe not on Christmas or Thanksgiving, there's people and vendors, and it's still alive. Did you ever go there, AJ? No. But that's when I first met Kevin, and he was at the WrestleCon, and Steve knew him, Carino. Right. And he wound up, all of a sudden I run into Delirious and he's like, ooh, we're going to do some promos with Kevin Sullivan.
Yeah, you know? Delirious loves Kevin Sullivan too. Yeah.
Right. He was, for lack of a better way to put it, marking out.
Yeah.
So, and then after that, Kevin joined us.
I got to call the big reveal that was my first pay-per-view match in North Carolina.
Right on.
Lights go down, Kevin comes up, or lights go up, Kevin's there. Yeah.
What a history he has. So I spoke with Kevin. I speak with him probably like 3-4 times a week. We're home, we're bored. You're fortunate that, you got the kids to distract you. You got your job to distract you. AJ's got his business. I'm sitting here. I'm losing my mind. They've postponed Broadway until June 1st. Mm-hmm. And if this isn't a telling, we'll get to the Tony Atlas. If this isn't, Billy Joel has this residency at the Garden once a month. Well, they've backed the first one to November of next year. Oh, so that tells you something. Yeah. But when I speak to these guys, and I spoke to them both today, and I mentioned to them about possibly talking about this subject, and used it, lending their names, not to particularly to Tony Atlas, just to the era,
right?
And they're both like, of course, the drug use was just abundant, prevalent. Not everybody, but it was there, and the cocaine was flying. The pills were jumping around like one time with Honky Tonk Man and Luke Williams, and this is when I was going through a bad period with the pills, and Luke was giving me. And then Honky Tonk Man says, you guys better be careful with those jelly beans.
Oh, my goodness.
Sorry, Luke. I love Luke and Kevin, too. But, so in around 1987, there was a ticket guy, Buggo John.
First time
we told the story. I know, I'm almost positive we told the story about Joe Pretzel, right?
We hit on Joe Pretzel, yeah, because I remember making the remark. There's a Pretzel family,
well, right? But poor Joe Pretzel wanted, he had cancer and he wanted to get out of his misery, and he asked one of the other hustlers, who was a former New York school teacher, right. What do I do? And the guy's name was Hamill, the school teacher, and he's like, oh, I think you could go to like Sweden or Norway. Yeah. And Joe Pretzel says, oh, it's too expensive to get there. Well, Joe Pretzel had the polar opposite of Joe Pretzel, who was a demure, quiet scalper who liked to go to Lincoln Center or Carnegie Hall, or places there wouldn't be these ruffian scalpers. He had this partner who, it was a ridiculous combination. This guy, he didn't go under the name. He was given the name Buggo John because he was just bugged out. And he was a frizzy-haired white Jewish kid from Queens with a drug habit, a cocaine habit, and he was very abrasive. He wasn't a tough guy, but he was just abrasive. And so we're at the Garden. It's a night of wrestling. And this is at the same era of time when the Camel was around.
Okay.
And I'm being tutored by Freddie the Weeper. So, this is like 87. I think the houses were still good.
Mm-hmm.
Am I safe in saying?
Yeah. They're on a bit of a wave.
It's coming off the Hogan Andre.
Right. Yeah, they had Hogan.
What year was that?
Hogan Andre was 87. Yeah.
Right. So it was in that period. It was hot.
Mm-hmm.
So every month at the Garden, you were pretty much guaranteed a sellout. And if you had the cheap seats, the $10, the blues, as they called them, they were paid. The Garden had colors to their section. You could always sell them, except if you were the Camel, for $15, $20. There was always a walk-up.
Mm-hmm.
The walk-ups, we'll get more into this when we talk about these other characters. But back in that era of, after I came home from New Orleans and I made went into this full time, and whether it was the Christmas show, which we touched on, whether it was, a Phil Collins concert, whether it was the Harlem Globetrotters, there was walk-up. There were walk-up customers, like a Mets game.
Mm-hmm.
There were walk-up customers. Why? Because there was no internet. You didn't have StubHub.
Right.
I guess you could call the box office and reserve seats.
Right.
If it wasn't sold out.
Mm-hmm.
But this is in the era when things would be sold out and there was still, a lot of walk-ups. We told the story about Spinning the Gate.
Yeah.
And all these concerts, not all of them. There was a few. I remember going to Yes at the Garden one time, and like when a down period for them, they made a mistake. They should have been at like the Beacon, and they were at the Garden in front of like 6,000 people. But most of the shows were sold out.
Yeah.
That they booked them right. Anyway, it was the wrestling. It was a night of wrestling, and I'm with my friend Harry, alias AKA Cosmo, who I had met in Hoboken, which we'll also be talking about more, my Hoboken experience. And he was we've referenced him before. He was a photographer, and he had a good gig, and he was a diehard wrestling fan, and he also had a taste for the white stuff, the Peruvian marching powder.
Wanted to ride the White Lightning.
So we used to go to wrestling every month.
Okay.
And Harry would come up and meet me. So Buggo John, before the show, says to me, he was a fan too.
Mm-hmm.
He says, "Hey, Cary, I know Tony Atlas. And he's looking to get some stuff." And I'm like, "Yeah, so now this is not the same guy that brought me to Sammy Stewart."
Right. Okay. Yeah.
I said, "So go get him some stuff."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Well, I don't know. Like, I could get it out in Queens, but I'm like, look, I'm going to the inside, and if you want, meet me by the Blarney Stone on 34th Street when the show's over. We'll see what happens." I figured he wouldn't be there. So Harry and I see the show. We leave, and there's Buggo John standing outside the Blarney Stone, or maybe he was inside drinking a beer, and we go in. And the wrestlers at the time, and when I was talking to Kevin this week, on 48th, between 40, it's still a hotel. You know it, AJ. It's the hotel right where because we went to Hadestown all those times. It's a Hilton Gardens.
Yes.
On 8th Avenue between 48th and 49th.
I've stayed there actually for work.
Okay.
Yep.
Sort of a
it's
grade
all right.
B.
Yeah.
Well, back then it was a Holiday Inn.
Okay.
And I knew the wrestlers stayed there. I wasn't a guy that would chase the wrestlers around.
Sure.
At that point. So Buggo's like, "Come on, let's go up there." All right, let's go. So we go there, and he's trying to find Tony Atlas. So Harry and I go into the bar in the Holiday Inn. Who's sitting at the bar? S.D. Jones and Andre the Giant.
Oh, wow.
Yes. Well, how could I, excuse me, how could I not? It's similar to our crew nights story in that last night of my sojourn with on the 82 Toll Tour, where there's Ian Anderson at the bar. There's Andre at the bar. I got to go try to say hello.
Right.
Give him my compliment him, And so I did. And I went up to this massive man. And I remember he was drinking. It was probably like a rum and coke in your short glass. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
But his hand, you couldn't see the drink. So I went around. There somehow was an empty seat, and I just went around, and it was similar to Ian Anderson. And I said, "Excuse me, Andre. I've watched you for years. I'm a big fan. I really enjoy seeing you wrestle. I tried to be as respectful as possible." Mm-hmm. And he did the same thing Ian did. He turned around. He didn't say thanks. He didn't say go away. He didn't say nothing. And he went back to his drink. Uh-huh. And I'm like, okay, I get the picture. The guy got bothered so often.
Sure.
So often. That's why he wanted to turn heel.
Oh, yeah, that would make sense.
Because he was one of the reasons, because as a good guy, babyface, he had to be nice. Mm-hmm. But being a heel, and he was a heel in that era, he didn't have to be nice. Plus, he just got sick of people bothering him.
Yeah.
Anyway, Buggo John finds Tony Atlas.
It's even S.D. Jones, no offense to Tony Atlas. S.D. Jones sounds more interesting. Maybe try and hang out with Andre. Even if he gives you the cold shoulder, maybe buy him a drink or something. I don't know. Right. And I said hello to S.D. Jones, and he said hello. Yeah. And we're sort of, me and Harry are sort of standing there, and here comes Buggo. And he's like, here, come here. And so Tony Atlas is in the lobby of the place. And he, I'm like, hey, how you doing? We shake hands. He's polite, very nice. And he didn't want cocaine. He wanted some crack, some smokable coke. Oh. Now, my connections and my places to go get it, which were, we're going to do we're going to do an episode at some point. And we're not advocating cocaine use, folks, but for historical reference, we're going to do, there was you don't think of the Times Square area as a hotbed of drug selling, except, the beat artists on 42nd Street selling the fake stuff to the kids from Long Island and New Jersey. But there was plenty of spots right around there, places that you wouldn't believe that they sold it, because it was virtually wide open. Wow. But so I knew where to get coke. But he wanted the smokable variety. Ooh. And I didn't really know. They were selling crack down on 8th Avenue between. Well, it was kind of new then, right? It was kind of new to the scene-ish. I mean, you hear about the coke and then the crack epidemic.
Right. It was full blown of the crack epidemic. Okay. If you would have gone with your family, if you went back in a time machine, and you would have driven in to go to the circus, or to take the kids to something. Let's say they were a few years older, and whatever it might be. But you were going to an event at the Garden, or you were with Sarah, or AJ. You were walking with Dakota down to see Primus, right, at the Garden. Well, if it was back in 1987, these guys were on. Just like I used to talk, just like how I said the hookers, the female hookers were shoulder to shoulder in the mid to late 70s. Yeah. Well, they got replaced by the crack dealers. Wow. They were still out there. The girls were still out there. But these crack dealers were on the corners, abundant. And and they used to sell this little vial. It was $5. Ooh. And then they came up with a new idea. They got like a longer, thinner vial. It had the same amount in it.
But it looked bigger.
Yeah.
It's like a charge
So they
bar.
would go, the fan would be walking
Oh
down the
my God.
and the guy would go, now this is where I bring, it didn't matter if you were with your 2 kids or AJ, if you were with your young 18-year-old son, or you're by yourself, or it's a woman by herself. They didn't care. They would just like say, yo, crack, jumbos. And they'd have it in their hand. And
Jesus.
Yeah, and they would show it to you. Now, so when I heard this from Tony Atlas, I was like, I don't want to schlep. And it was midnight.
Yeah.
It's dangerous. It was dangerous at 4 PM.
Right.
Let alone at midnight. So I'm like, well, I can get some Coke. And he didn't prefer that. And I told him, look, that's what I can do. Mm-hmm. So he gave us some money. He's a gentleman. He wasn't a schnorrer.
Yeah, you pay up front.
Yes, like Sammy Stewart.
There you go.
And I went across the street, virtually to 46 and 8th. There was a bar, and I want to get into more detail another time because it's within this story I want to tell about this area. There was a bar called the Full Moon Saloon. It was open from 6 a.m. to 4 a.m. Why they would even close
for 2 hours?
To wipe. And they had a house cocaine dealer.
Excuse me?
Yes. Many of the bars on 8th Avenue and 9th Avenue at this time
really
had like a house man. And the Full Moon had enough, and it was a small, dangerous place where there was a bar. And I mean, if there was a shootout in the place, you're going to get shot with a bullet. Ooh. Because there's a bar and a wall. And then it led to, there's 2 bathrooms, a jukebox. I think there was a dartboard, and that was it.
Oh, so a real hole in the wall. It was
a hole in the wall. And there was the coke dealers came in shifts.
This is real? This is real.
Oh this is real. You're going to get me off the story here because I can start telling about the full moon.
Yeah.
There were 3 dealers. There was this guy, Angel. He was hard. The coke was horrible, right? Just enough to get by. And and he was there for like the morning and early afternoon shift. And the clientele was people that worked on Broadway, businessmen, that just worked in the offices. Yes, there was hookers and hustlers. But one thing about the full moon, it was safe to do cocaine in the bathroom, because they had some kind of deal. Anyway, Angel was one of the guys. His stuff was terrible. Then Bert would come on. Bert was good.
Bert, all right,
Bert
we like
was
Bert.
Good.
All right.
Much better stuff. He was a nicer guy. His only problem was that he would lock himself in the ladies' room bathroom, and he would cook up the freebase, which Tony Atlas ultimately would want.
Right.
But he liked to do it himself.
Oh,
and
geez.
there'd be people So
Did
anyway,
Richard Pryor light himself on fire doing that? Okay.
Yes.
All right.
So and then there was this other guy, Will. We don't
even want to talk about Will.
Miserable. It was a miserable guy, and his stuff was miserable. He was miserable. But anyway, I went and I saw Bert. Now, I'm not going to ask Bert to cook up some stuff. He had the powdered stuff. There was some kind of integrity to selling powdered stuff. This is real sick, but there was integrity to selling powdered stuff during the crack era. We don't sell that crack.
Oh,
it's just, that's.
Well, and we talked about this a long time ago, the dividing racial lines, crack seen primarily as lower class, attributed to use by African Americans at the time, demonized by the Reagan administration, specifically crack. And cocaine has always, for the most part, had this association with, upper class white people can do it.
Right, the movie star.
Right, and it's so weird because it's pretty much the same thing, except one's more concentrated.
Right. And the other, you hit the nail on the head. And the other nail to hit on the head was crack was so looked down upon just because it was causing a lot of problems, with crime. And it was as bad as cocaine as this was worse. So anyway, I get a package from Bert of regular Coke. I go back to Tony. I left Harry with Buggo John, and I go back there, and I'm like, here. Now, I thought at that point he was going to say, well, let's go up to my room. Mm-hmm. Or you know what? I didn't say here. I just came back, and I'm like, all right, I'm good. Yeah. And did he give me the money in advance? I don't know. I don't think he did. Maybe, but he paid. He said, I'm good. And he's like, at that point, I thought he was going to say, all right, let's go upstairs to my room. And I asked Kevin about this. Do you think that they had roommates at that point in time? He goes, sometimes you want to save money. Yeah. So maybe there was a roommate up there. But Tony's idea for a safe place to consume some of this, and you said you've been in this hotel. I have. Was the main men's room of the lobby.
So at that time of night, that's probably the only public restroom.
Oh, it is.
In
like if someone
12-block radius.
Well, if a man was checking in after a flight, with his family, and he had a taxi, he's got to go to the bathroom, he's just like dying to go. Right. And he's like, he'd run on the front door. Well, where's the bathroom? The guy goes, over to the right, Yeah. Well, that was so we go into this men's room, and I give him the stuff, and Tony's like, I go, well, let's, I didn't say, I thought he was going to open and snort it. He's like, who's got some weed? Harry had some weed. And so he wanted to put the cocaine, you can do this. Oh, geez. It's not as effective. He was hell-bent. Sorry, Tony, but this is what happened. He was hell-bent on smoking, and I've done this, and it's not sort of a waste.
You don't get the intended effect.
No. Anyway, so we're in the men's room, and there was like 3 stalls and 5 urinals. There was no one in there. And he's like, come on. And I don't know, Buggo, I remember, I don't know what happened to Buggo, but it was me, Harry, and Mr. Atlas. And he directs us to the last stall. He was a kind man. He gives me the money. Yeah. And I give him the stuff. And he asked, does anyone have weed? And Harry said, yeah. And he goes, you got papers? Yeah. And he takes out, Harry sprinkles the weed in, and he takes out an abundant amount of this cocaine and puts it in this joint. And he rolls it up. And I'm just now he's a huge man.
Oh, gigantic, still is.
And so Harry and I are Harry's on the right side of the toilet. I'm on the left side of the toilet. Tony Atlas is straight in front of us with his back to the door. Mm-hmm. And I hear people are coming in and out, in and out of the bathroom. It's not, the wrestlers are in the bar. The bar's busy. Yeah. And I'm like, what the hell's going on? So we light it, and we're passing it around, and you felt it. And all of a sudden, Tony Atlas says, were you guys at that show tonight? Now, this is 87. He was sort of down on the card.
And he was in and out a lot.
Yeah. You go, yeah, we were at the show. He goes, you see they got me wrestling that bum there tonight? I think he might have wrestled like Jose Estrada or somebody. Yeah. Or Johnny Roz.
Sure.
Right. In a second match. And I'm like, I thought you'd be in like one of the main events. I was scared. I was scared. And he was going off. right? He goes, they got to treat me with respect here.
Yeah.
And he went on, he cut a promo, not on us.
Yeah. But to you, certainly.
To us, right? About, the stat, he was a main eventer, WWF tag team champ,
one in
Rocky
Allentown.
Johnson.
Yeah.
And eventually we finished the joint, and he opened the door, and he was polite enough, and we bid adieu.
Yeah.
And that was my little story about Tony.
Oh, that was great.
He was a nice man.
Yeah. It's a shame. He had a lot of roadblocks like that come up. There's the story that he tells about the time that he was allegedly going to win the Intercontinental Championship.
What happened?
The way he tells the story is that he went to a dominatrix instead and had her step on his face. And so, I mean, we all have things we enjoy, and this is not kink shaming. This is just something that, but I think it might have been for the detriment of his career. I think he would be, if he would have defeated Don Morocco and become the Intercontinental Champion, he might be in the history books a little more, at least.
Well, after 87, I don't think he did much in WWF.
No, he came back a couple of times with Saba Simba, which is pretty racist.
That was bad.
And then he came back in 2006 as Mark Henry, around there as Mark Henry's bodyguard, which was pretty fun. And he was on the ECW reboot, which was cool. He kind of had a nice, funny character, and he was on TV.
Well,
It was
I'm sure he's cleaned up his act, as most of us older gentlemen that lived through this have.
Yeah.
Kevin Sullivan was telling me today that he and Tony were a tag team in the Georgia territory.
Wow.
And, it was, he was a good guy.
Yeah.
He was a good guy. So, and we neglected to mention, you're still coming out of the bubble.
Yeah.
It's like the bubble boy. Our episode on the collectibles, which I thought would bomb out.
Right.
It actually did very well.
It had more reaction and more comments than we normally get.
Yeah, I was surprised. And I just thought people wouldn't care. But they did. Mm-hmm. So we'll have to revisit that at some point.
Yeah, I got you into that Parkhurst set. Now you're getting the 54s.
Yes, I don't want to step on Ian's toes. There's like collector's envy or cutting someone off or cock block.
Yeah, no,
I'm not going to block you from the 55. Yeah, but they have these nice 54 cards. So in my boredom here, I've been looking at some of those and looking at old pictures, and I came across an old picture of myself and the great Bobby Heenan, probably the greatest wrestler, for me, the greatest wrestling manager. Beside him, he and Jim Cornette are neck and neck, but Bobby's, the length of his career, what do you think?
Geez, 30 years, right? From the mid 60s to almost the mid 90s. And speaking of Jim Cornette, he gave essentially when Jim Cornette came into WWF, he gave him the seal of approval. In Jim Cornette's debut, he said, "This is the best manager in wrestling." So it's an interesting passing of the torch.
Well, we were fortunate, and I hope ROH, as we get through this pandemic and we get back to doing live shows, I hope that we start bringing in. There's fewer and fewer legends. There's fewer and fewer guys that are, but I think we were trying to do that in Vegas.
I don't want to spoil anything.
Don't spoil anything.
If that's your line of thinking, you're going to want to watch Ring of Honor.
Okay.
In the next couple of weeks.
And if there was someone who's contractually able to come, a Bret Hart type,
right,
or someone of that nature, I'd love to see them, because that was so much fun. And I was fulfilling some of my wrestling fantasies. But Gabe and Adam Pearce and Hunter, during my ownership, they were all about it too. Yeah. So we had Bobby Heenan. There's other podcasts, by the way, folks, that'll give you more detail on these Ring of Honor dates and shows. We don't.
Yeah, an honorable mention by Shane Hagedorn and Jeff Schwartz. Yeah.
Right, good guys, and they'll be probably laughing at me because I don't know the specifics. But the first time we had Bobby Heenan come in, this I do remember. was we were doing a Rexplex show.
Mhm.
And we were, instead of doing the shoot interview where Gabe would ask the questions, we had Jim Cornette come in.
Oh,
You never saw that?
I didn't know this was the first one because I know they did one.
Yeah.
And then there's one with Percy and
Well, Jim Cornette came in,
Mhm.
and so we were at the Sheraton by Newark Airport,
Mhm.
and it was myself, Gabe, the camera guy, and Jim and Bobby Heenan. And I got there first for some reason. I think Jim was there already. He was in his room. And I had met him before, Jim.
Mhm.
And I see Bobby Heenan somehow with my room, or the room we were going to do the taping in. There was a room with a window you could see the lobby if you didn't have the curtains closed. Right?
Mhm.
What are you thinking of?
I mean,
What are you thinking of? It's like Buddy Booth style.
We still haven't hit fully on Show World, but that's
We got
neither
it.
here nor there.
I want to do not just a cocaine tour, do a sex tour of that era. But yeah, so I see Bobby Heenan coming in,
Oh.
walking, and I run down, hey, Mr. Heenan, I think I called Bobby. I said, Bobby, I'm Cary. I'm from Ring of Honor.
Mhm.
And he was coming out with one-liners right out of the gate. Some of them were, slightly inappropriate, for, being in the highly black population of Newark,
Mm.
But that was Bobby. But he didn't do that on air.
Right.
And it was nothing nasty. And he was funny. And he's just coming out with these one-liners. And so I told him, we made sure his room was ready. And it might have been 2 PM. We're going to start this at 4. Is that okay? He's like, yeah.
Mhm.
So Jim and Bobby do the Jim's asking the questions. It was fabulous.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. They used to say in Hadestown. Here's the thing. Jim had never met Bobby.
Wow.
I might be.
They did one. I know they did one segment in the WWF, but I think Bobby left right after
He
that.
never sat and talked with him.
Right. That would make sense.
Okay.
Because Jim was doing Smoky Mountain while Bobby was doing
And
commentary.
the next day at the Rexplex, we had a match with, maybe you know this, the Briscoes and somebody, where Heenan managed one team and Cornette managed the other team.
Right. He didn't manage the Colt Cabanas team, slipped in a chain.
Do you know Cabana's partner?
I want to, off the top of my head.
Well,
I think,
while you're looking, I'll continue the story. So we do the interview. They do the interview, and it was great. And now it's around 6 p.m, 7. So Gabe wants to go home, and it's a big day tomorrow. Fine. He's living in the Philly area. So he and the camera guy leave, and which left myself with Jim and Bobby Heenan. So Bobby Heenan's like, let's go to the bar. He was known to have a few drinks. Did you find the...
Yeah, it was Colt and Jimmy Jacobs versus Jack Evans and Roderick Strong.
It wasn't the Briscoes, huh?
No, not in that.
Okay.
Not in that one.
So we go to the bar, and we're at a little table in the Sheraton Lounge. It was virtually empty, a couple of people, and it's Bobby, and I'm sitting in a chair, and Jim's on the other side. And I remember saying, like, I figured you guys would have crossed paths. And they're like, no, in the territory days.
Right.
Whatever, Bobby was in Atlanta for a period of time before Jim was really in the business. And then the AWA, Jim never went to, and so on and so forth.
Wow.
So they really never had. So this is after the interview.
Mm-hmm.
We get a second interview of the real, and it's so Bobby's basically holding court.
Wow.
And Jim and I are just listening. And I know Jim's not going to listen to this. I wish he did, because we have great respect for him, and he has great respect for you. with your current announcing. But we were both, as Jim would say, we were like gobsmacked. Yeah. And at one point, Bobby Heenan gets up, says, "Excuse me, I'm going to go to the bathroom." So I had met Cornette like 3 times at this point. So I had a little vibe with him. So I remember turning to him and slapping him on the knee. I go, "Dude," I go, it's cool enough. It's cool enough to be hanging out with you. But I go, "With Bobby Heenan." He goes, "Yeah, I know." And we had Bobby Heenan on a few more events. There was an incident in one of our many venues in Massachusetts. I believe the great Mike Coughlin got us. We bounced from city to city. We had all kinds of problems. There was the cross problem with CM Punk against Raven. Oh, yeah. When they did the crucifix thing. Yeah. That didn't go over well in the Irish Catholic Massachusetts community.
Can't imagine.
Then we bounced to another place. There was always a problem. We were in Dorchester.
Ooh.
And Pete Doherty came.
No.
I swear to God. No. Well, but
of all the unbelievable things you've said here, that's the most unbelievable.
He came. And maybe I'm wrong. The guys on honorable mention are saying, it wasn't in Dorchester. That was in Braintree. It might have been. But wherever Heenan was in this Massachusetts show, the Duke of Dorchester showed up. Well, what happened was, I believe it was Homicide, said some inappropriate things in the ring, that we say words that 4-letter words that we use on this podcast occasionally. And this was at a public, at the Ring of Honor show talking to the crowd. And Bobby Heenan, who is as liberal and can be very inappropriate behind closed doors. Yeah. He didn't like this. Yeah. And he threatened to walk out.
Wow.
Not like our other friend, which we'll get to, the guy that goes woo.
Oh,
but he was like, "What are you guys doing? What is it? You don't. There's kids in the audience.
Yeah.
And I'm glad the new Ring of Honor really doesn't allow slips occasionally.
Yeah,
slips occasionally. But he was just a pleasure and a wonderful guy to work with. There was another time he went to Cornette's house, and Gabe and I went there. We were in Dayton, and we had him. There was like 3. I'm on one of them. Mm-hmm. I was the moderator or I walk in on the interview. They were going long, but Jim was showing his Cooperstown of wrestling memorabilia.
Amazing.
So, he was a great guy. And there's a nice poster over there, the white one with him and Blackjack Lanza, and it's signed to me. And I don't do that often with many people.
Is that Hammond, Indiana?
Yes.
Okay. And that's Blackjack Lanza versus Yukon Moose Cholak.
Yeah.
In the main event. Amazing.
It's not fair for me, but we're going to close it up soon. It's not fair for me to tell this story because I don't know if fair is the right word, but so I'm not going to do the justice. But I think the highlight of I want to tell it correctly, at least get the timeline correct. It came up, maybe I asked it. I doubt Jim asked it, but I said, how did you get in the business?
Yeah.
And he was in Indiana. He's an Indianapolis guy or a Hammond guy or somewhere.
Indiana's favorite Bobby.
He was a single. I think he was a single brought up by his mom, and he had to hustle. And he loved wrestling, and somehow he got a job like selling popcorn or soda in the arena. This is like at 13, 14, and he used to try to talk to the wrestlers. And you're talking about like 1963, 64. Things were quiet.
Yeah,
But eventually he worked his way in to being able to, when the guys came to the ring with a ring jacket or a towel or whatever, a cape. He was the guy, the kid that got, like the ball boy at Yankee Stadium. How'd that kid get that job, right? Were you ever a ball boy?
I was for the Allentown Ambassadors. You bet. Yeah. 1998 through 2000. Yeah.
All right. I remembered that.
It was awesome.
Right.
Hey, you got to hang out with guys that had been in the majors, but yes. Go ahead.
So he would take the ring jackets back. Well, it was when he was old enough. I think he had to wait till he was 18. Dick the Bruiser was running the territory.
Mm-hmm. This is WWWA?
Yes. Mm-hmm. And sorry, you historians, if I screw up this story, or I'm mixing two stories together. But anyway, Dick the Bruiser tells him, you could be a good manager, and I'm going to bring you to this show in Kentucky, or is in it.
They would run Kentucky.
And I don't think it was Louisville. It was a smaller building.
Maybe Paducah. He
goes, so meet me on the corner of, some corner in Indianapolis, and drive. It was like Dick the Bruiser and Wilbur Snyder.
Okay.
And Bobby Heenan's in the back. He's 18-year-old. They tell him to dye his hair blonde.
Yeah.
And he goes to this show, and he's in the back. And there was they wanted him to come out. I forget who he was managing, but there was a spot where he was supposed to, throw some foreign object, and it was something on a chain, right? Like maybe a blackjack on a chain.
Okay.
And when it came to his spot, the thing got caught on the rope.
Yeah.
And it spun around, right? Yeah. And it's like he messed it up technically.
Yeah.
And did the best he could. And it was like a 4-hour ride to where they were going.
Yeah.
And this is Bobby telling the story. And then I mess up my spot, my very first chance, my first break really in the wrestling business. And now we got to drive back. It's another 4 hours. And these guys are drinking beer. They're like, they've stopped twice to get more beer. And then as we're coming across, there's a long bridge before you get to Indiana. And there's this car wreck. And I see a man on fire. I'm like, what? He goes, yeah. And all this is going on. And finally we get to that corner of that gas station in Indianapolis. And Dick the Bruiser turns around, never said a word to me. It never said, Bobby Heenan says, he didn't say a word to me on the ride back. When the guy was on fire, they were like, oh, look, there's a guy on fire.
Oh, my God.
And he drops me. Finally, when they get to this gas station, I don't think Bobby had a car. It was probably a few blocks from his house, or maybe it was a few miles from his house.
Yeah.
And he drops him off. He turns around and go, here, kid. And he gives him $5 and says, can you come back next week?
Hey.
And he's like, yup.
There you go.
And that was, I'm sure there's the story's got mistakes in it, but it was something of that nature. But the $5 and do you want to come back? Was it the next night or in a few days? But that's how he got in.
Amazing.
And he was a wonderful man. And I remember myself and Cornette listening to that and just with our mouths agape.
Well, I know for a long time those were available on the Ring of Honor streaming service. I'll have to double check. I think those actually might be available on Honor Club, but I'll double check and see. I know for a long time they are. If not, they're digitized, and I can maybe nudge them.
I have some because when Jim was working with Sinclair, they let him. There's a series of interviews. There's one there's 3 with Heenan.
Yeah.
There's 2 with Percy Pringle, Paul Bearer that are great. And we're going to talk about some of these guys in future episodes. We're talking about legends. There's a 2-part I love. You would like it, but a lot of fans just don't understand how important Bill Watts was.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, there's 2 with Bill Watts.
Yeah.
And I think one with Ricky Steamboat. And
there's a Blue Meanie one that's actually quite rare.
Really? With Jim?
Yeah. I don't think it's with Jim.
It's with Jim.
But they branded it under the Ring of Honor straight shooting And that one was exceptionally rare for a while.
He came in, and Stevie Richard, they were just we were just trying to generate cash.
Yeah.
And to go up against the other company that had been extracted from Ring of Honor.
Right.
Yeah, that guy. So we would just do, Carino did a couple with us, and but having Bobby Heenan with us, and the last time I saw him was at one of these. Did you see him at one of these WrestleCons?
Yeah, I got to meet him. And
he went through a lot with cancer, and it was really sad. But he always had a smile.
He fought hard.
I could barely talk, but I had a smile. And I don't know. I think he's a better man than me, because I'd have a rough time doing that. Yeah. But what a legend!
Absolutely. Well, this took a lot of twists and turns this week, but I'm glad that we took all the twists and turns. We talked about everything from crack cocaine to show world to the inspirational Bobby Heenan and mail-in ballots. And
not to mention your beautiful white rimmed glasses.
$4.99 on a popular internet website, which if they sponsored us, I'd give them a plug, but they don't.
Well, speaking of sponsoring us or sponsors, we don't have any sponsors. You get this show completely free. Nobody wants. You figure Blue Chew would have contacted us. They on every. But
they know. We've talked about my sexual health background. They figure we're doing okay.
Right.
But, yeah.
My friend Eric out in Wisconsin, who helps me with the notes and some other stuff. He's got he had a show set. It's called Discover. He wants his company to a fledgling promoter. And I've known the kid for like 10 years, and he's not a kid. He's in his 30s. And he came to the Garden.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, him and his friend schlepped to the Garden. And anyway, but he has a company called Discover Pro Wrestling that had a show this past June 27th that was obviously postponed. So, Eric, thanks for the help you do on this. And hopefully Discover Pro Wrestling will be opening its doors in the proper time, as we would like everything to open its doors.
Absolutely. Well said. And with that, we hope you watch the Pure Tournament this weekend. Join for the watch along. Join us next week, where who knows where next week's episode is.
Yeah, don't forget to subscribe to us. Yeah. I'm waiting for someone else. I see some of these podcasts we mentioned. I'm not going to, ROH has a good podcast too, the ROH Strong with Kevin Eck. And I see we've had like these 77 or 76 reviews, and someone give us a bad review. We don't care. Just give us another review. And if you want to buy a shirt, it's on Pro Wrestling Tees, the Last Stop Penn Station, and the He Eats Breakfast, the Camel.
I love the fact that we have a glowing review that's a 1-star review. It's like the content is this is the best podcast I've ever listened to. Ian and Cary are great. 1 star.
We don't care. Just listen to us.
Yeah.
Thanks for tonight, Ian.
Absolutely.
It was a lot of fun.
Thank you, Cary. And with that, World Series prediction, quick. Who do you think's gonna win? Who do you want to win?
Well, I know who I want to win tonight.
Yeah. Okay.
Tampa,
and we're recording this during Game 1.
I was, I've been watching these games, I like to keep it interesting. When the Yankees got knocked out, I usually lose interest. I'll watch the World Series, but out of boredom, I've been making some small bets, with this. Boy, every ad on TV now is FanDuel and DraftKings.
It's like the only entertainment people have anymore. Right.
So I've been partaking. But the good thing about it is you don't have to bet a lot. You can bet $1. And it keeps me interested. I don't bet $1. I bet a little more, but it keeps me interested in the game. So I've been watching everything I've been predicting in the last few days has gone bad. But I'm going to go with Tampa.
Okay.
I think that the Dodgers roster financially is probably, am I safe to say, 8 times the value of Tampa's roster?
Yeah, I think Dodgers are 1 or 2 and Tampa's 28th. I know Tampa's 28th.
But Dodgers are awesome. Mookie Betts is amazing.
That trade's going to haunt Boston. I mean, Curse of the Bambino in reverse. I mean, they got a 26-year-old MVP, perennial MVP for a drop in the bucket. And
so on paper, the Dodgers should win, but
yeah.
Tampa is very pesky.
They are. Kevin Cash is an interesting manager. He's not afraid to try different things. He has instead of starters, he had, what was he calling those guys? Openers?
Right.
Where they'd
Right. He created a completely new system.
Yeah.
You know, after all these years in baseball, you've seen everything, but he sort of came up with a new concept. Yeah. So who are you picking?
I'd like to see the Rays, but no one turns out for those games. You know, I'd love for LA to be rewarded. They've only won once in my lifetime, which is mind-boggling to me, that a team that's been that good, that competitive, and that willing to spend money has only won once in my lifetime. But I kind of, I wish Tampa had turned out better for their teams. You know, they kind of turn out for the Lightning.
They don't go to the baseball.
And that field is pretty,
it's not that good.
Not a good vibe. It's a big concrete mess. And it's hard to get to. It's off the bridge. But
it's got that stupid roof too. Where you can hit a fly ball and it goes off the roof. It's
a double.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's too low.
Yeah.
It's too low. That said, I guess the Rays, it'd be cool for them to win their first one.
All right. And last but not least, our good friend, my darling little cat Lamb Chop is hanging in there.
Yeah.
When we did the recording 2 weeks ago, I hope Lamb Chop's here for all our recordings, but she's hanging in there. She's doing well.
Yeah.
So let's send the people home.
All right. Thanks so much for listening this week. Please join us next week on Last Stop Penn Station. For Cary, I'm Ian. Thanks to AJ, Lamb Chop, and all the listeners. We'll see you next week.
For listening to Last Stop Penn Station podcast. Rate, review, like, subscribe, and share on your favorite platform. Connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, or at laststoppennstation.com.